Hi, I'm Keegan Sands, and welcome back to Ship It, the podcast from Dept Agency that's made by engineers for engineers. In today's episode, we have a recording from our most recent Dept Talks Live, where we explored the current and future state of NFTs and how they relate to brands. So without further ado, let's get started.
All right, well, welcome everyone. Very excited. This is our final live Dept Talks of 2021. Kicking it off with a bang. It seems only appropriate after this past year, how exciting everything happened in the world of crypto, that we figured we would take a look back, cover everything we saw there, and really more importantly, looking what to look forward to in the next year and how the brands can jump into that. My name is Jesse Streb. I am the Global SVP of Technology here at Dept. Been living and breathing this world for a few years now. Very excited for all of our panelists here. Let me go ahead and introduce those. Let me pass it first to you, David Markley. If you can go ahead and introduce yourself, please.
Sure. Thanks, Jesse. Hi, everyone. I'm David Markley. I lead business solutions at Algorand and have been working alongside the team at Dept to work on enabling brands of all different types and sizes to envision and also bring their dreams, their NFT dreams to life. When I'm not working with them on AlgoMart, I work on business development, solution architecture, and ecosystem investments here at Algorand. And Jesse, I'll pass the baton back to you.
Thank you, David. Appreciate it. Keep going down the line here. Joel, you want to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Jesse. Hi, everyone. Nice to be here. My name is Joel Reginato. I'm the VP of Product at Circle, and Circle is a financial services technology company. We do a couple of things. We bring to market infrastructure in terms of digital currency, particularly in the form of an asset called USDC or US dollar coin, which is a digital dollar that runs on blockchains. And on top of that, we bring financial services that pretty much every business needs from either a payments or a treasury point of view. Really bringing this concept of companies banking on blockchain rails, and happy to be here and talk about how the future looks like.
Excellent. Thank you. Anne-Marie?
Hi, everyone. My name is Anne-Marie Giannuzos. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer of the Drone Racing League. We're the world's premier professional drone racing sports league. The best drone pilots in the world fly in our league, and you can watch them. We're going to be on NBC this year on Christmas Day at 3 p.m. If you want to tune in, our fans around the world also watch us on Twitter. And we're a proud partner of Algorand. What we're doing together is we're intersecting technology and high-speed virtual and in real life drone racing and building our sport into the blockchain. And we combine both esports and in real life competition. We like to say that we're creating the next era of sport.
Excellent. Thank you. Abdel, want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. Really excited to join you. So my name is Abdul. What I do now is I work at the Coca-Cola company. And at the Coca-Cola company, I'm responsible for partnerships. Partnerships can mean anything in terms of fashion, music, and digital. So as a part of digital, I also lead a blockchain and anything related to blockchain. And that's why I'm here. So nice to see everyone.
Thank you. All right, Brandon Askov, we got one more.
Hi, I'm Brandon Askov. I work at Rocket Insights. I'm the director of web projects here, and we started working with Algorand a while ago to help bring AlgoMart, the white label open source NFT platform, so that any brand can own their own NFT platform. We brought that to market in October. Since then, we've been helping a lot of customers to sort of understand the next steps in this space and how they could bring existing assets or their existing business to the blockchain, or maybe start an entirely new business on the blockchain. So we try to help those people go from idea to actually a fully fledged business. And right now I have the sun pouring on my face for another 3 minutes. So if it looks a little bright, I apologize.
You look great, Brandon. Maybe you look like you're going to help. Don't you worry. I think it's all good.
That's right. Yeah.
So we'll jump into it. I mean, one of the things we thought would be really interesting is just talking to some of these brands that we have here and understanding how you see crypto relating to your landscape and some of the interesting things you might be able to do there. So since we got two brands on this panel, that would be great to start you. So I'll start with you, Anne-Marie. I know we've been working pretty closely together, but I'd love to understand like how you see brands needing to think about the crypto strategy. What are some of the important things you think they should be considering?
Yeah, it's a great question. Thanks, Jesse. And I've received a ton of advice about this topic in the past year and had to kind of synthesize all of the opinions and great expertise that I was receiving into a strategy that we're going to be marching forward with. What I would say is that, even zooming out from NFTs in particular, blockchain is a part of any modern business strategies, and NFTs are certainly part of that equation. And I think there are three key things to keep in mind when you're thinking about setting your particular business strategy. The first, and of course, I'm speaking from, the lens of thinking about fans and sports, but just for generally good business practice, the first thing to think about is how to leverage NFTs to unlock new experiences for your business clients, your customers, or your general community. And then ultimately, how does that help you to solve a conversion problem or any other opportunity that you're seeing in terms of your particular business community? So once you've figured out sort of what the utility is going to be, the second thing I would encourage people to think about is, who is your partner? I mean, unless you're a firm that has an incredible depth of engineering talent, you're going to want to seek out world-class. We've done that. So we've worked with Depth and Rocket Insights on our particular strategy. And we also have a world-class innovation partner in Algorand. And so we were not necessarily prepared to do it alone, but rather bring our engineering talent to the table to really create a good mix of people that are putting together a strategy. And then the third is thinking about how NFTs, blockchain ladder up to ultimately helping your business to maintain brand relevance and then scale people that are excited about your brand. We conducted a focus group recently on this topic. And one of the things that was a little surprising to me that I'll share here and helpful was that people that are avid consumers of NFTs reported that they wanted brands and businesses to indicate right up front the longer term strategy or playbook for how they're going to really build this into the core of their business. Like, consumers don't want to see this as a one-off. And I think the onus is on us as brand leaders to provide that transparency to the communities that we're serving.
I love hearing that, Anne-Marie. Like, a big thing you touched upon is utility. And I think the latter part of that is also highlighting it. Something that when we talk to our clients about is that, hey, don't think about it just as a cash grab. Like, you got to think about the long-term strategy and what is really the added value you have going to those users. Thank you. Abdel, I know that you've been doing a lot of this thought with Coca-Cola as well. And I believe you have some interesting plans for 2022. What's your advice to other brands in terms of what they should be thinking about in terms of their crypto strategy as well?
Yes, thanks, Jesse. I think this is $1 million question. At least I think for brands it is, because you should see it from different angles. First of all, it's a brand new technology. I mean, I'm not sure if I'm speaking for the whole group, but at least for major brands like the Coca-Cola company, it's a brand new technology. So first of all, what's the utility of this? What's the utility of this brand new technology? What can we do with it? And I think probably bring it really down to the point of what are our consumers looking for in this brand new technology. So it's not really a case of what can we get out of it, is how can we use this to leverage this with our consumers, either driving more consumption with existing consumers or driving consumption with newer consumers, so consumer recruitment. So seeing it from those two angles, I think that's important. From a company perspective and a product perspective, I think from a legacy perspective, this is probably something that's going to be very, very critical in a lot of the companies. And a legacy perspective, from my point of view, is how do you get legal on board? How do you train your legal to understand contractual terms? Because these are terms that I can assure you they have never seen before, and it might scare them off. Secondly, finance. How do you manage to educate your finance department, especially in these major companies? Finance departments are not used to receiving anything related to crypto, either payments or anything. So how do you deal with that? And thirdly is senior management. How do you educate your senior management in terms of all these legacy, let's call them issues, that you have to deal with? How do you then move forward with a certain project? So for me, it was these two kind of forces combined, the consumer and the legacy in-house. And you need to find a common ground. And that common ground, to be honest, for me was it's, let's say, not as scary as anything to do with a wider crypto blockchain implementation. It's something that's can be visually quite appealing, and it's something that can have a use case, maybe not a practical use case from a first introduction, but at least it's a visual kind of case, and also it's a marketing tool. So I think that's probably something where if you find that common ground, roll out with something that's not as scary, and then you can build on this. So then you can build on metaverses, on gaming, and we can then take it further towards tokenization, etc. So I think it's mainly taking baby steps, education, and then getting these common ground, finding this common ground between consumer and legacy.
Yeah, you touched upon a lot of great stuff there. So I'm gonna avoid the temptation of diving into compliance because we have a whole section on that, which I completely agree with. I think it's a huge mountain to climb as you go into mainstream with these brands. But I also love the fact you touched upon tokenization. I do agree that I think NFTs have been a really nice way for companies to dip their toes into crypto. It's something that feels more tangible and an easier way to get started for sure. But I agree that there's some really interesting things I think we'll be able to do with tokenization down the road. One thing I want to touch upon, and this question really, I think probably for maybe either Brandon, David, or Joao, is really one of the challenges that we've seen with brands is that as you pick that partner, to Anne-Marie highlighted, it's a big deal, right? You're picking up, and people are familiar with certain blockchains and they think that's the way to go. And we're not going to go into too deep on the right blockchain and what's not. But one of the challenges we see is interoperability between those blockchains when you have an NFT, right? So as a brand, if I leverage, say, Algorand, David, but I now want to go sell on an OpenSea, which is going to be on Ethereum, how much of a challenge is that you think we need to solve for? And what do you foresee happening in the future there? So I guess I'll direct that to you, David.
Yeah, thanks, Jesse. So taking a step back and using the same process that Anne-Marie outlined, that Dell outlined internally to chart the right course, it's really about getting back to the basics and what's right for the particular brand, right? You want to take an inventory of what are our goals, what are we trying to achieve, and then we can have a discussion around, hey, is blockchain the right technology? And then what is subsequently the right blockchain? And that's a motion that, Jesse, you're obviously familiar with, that Brandon and I have very much been trying to refine and perfect here over the last 9 months or so. And so out of that process, as Abdel alluded to, or as Anne-Marie alluded to, how do I engage with my customers in a more meaningful way? How do I give them unique experiences that blend the physical way that I'm engaging and the virtual way? And this isn't so dissimilar from the Nike acquisition that was just announced, right? Nike has a very strong physical footprint where they engage with their customers in these traditional mediums. And now they've just acquired a digital platform that allows them to recreate their physical goods in this digital world. And so you might be thinking, hey, why would Nike do this in the first place? Well, Nike now has a way of rewarding their consumers in a new channel that is direct to that engagement base. And so they can see with high fidelity who acquired the Air Force One, token or digital representation. They can reward them with early access to, unique designs of that sneaker, to auctions for a new limited series, to in-person events. And so it just is a new way of engaging with their brands. And so once you have that use case in mind, now you can start to take a technical lens and a technical evaluation framework on, okay, well, how many transactions do we need? For things like Ethereum, where the average transaction cost of creating an NFT and then transacting is over $100, maybe your NFT price range is, $5 or even a freemium model as a way of driving that kind of loyalty and that engagement. And so if that's the case, you very quickly start to weed through which blockchain technology is the right one for you. And so with that in mind, that is what we have built Algorand to ultimately be able to provide. Algorand is scaling to over 10,000 transactions per second here in 2022. We have immediate transaction finality. And so we're getting into some technical terms, but the net result is that Algorand is extremely fast, it's extremely cheap, and we like to believe, very easy for developers to use. Hence why I think our partnership with Dept has gone so well, is that it really is very approachable for the technical teams. And so all that to say, I'm not here to espouse, I'm certainly biased. I'm not here to espouse a particular blockchain. But when we start with what is the brand's end goal? What is the campaign? How are we going to use this technology in a meaningful way? And then what is the right technical platform? I think we found that Algorand time and time again rises to the top.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, right? There's a reason that we chose to partner with Algorand for all the reasons you said. I'm going to give Brandon a minute to say it because we say it a bunch when we talk to our clients. You didn't touch upon about Algorand, which is that we call the business friendly blockchain as well. And so I think it's a huge thing as these brands are getting comfortable with crypto that you find that blockchain is. So Brandon, I'll give you 30 seconds to a minute just to talk about why did we choose Algorand as our partner as well, as our blockchain?
Yeah, I think you touched upon it right there. It is very business friendly. There's a couple of features that Algorand supports, such as clawback and freezing, that I won't get into because it's more lingo, but those are great features that Algorand supports that gives us it lowers the risk, right? This is especially when we're touching upon regulation a little bit in compliance, but it does lower the risk when we use Algorand as the backing blockchain. Plus, it is a layer one solution, meaning it is a blockchain that comes with all the features that we would need as opposed to trying to bolt on other solutions to that kind of thing. But I think the biggest thing is that when most of the time you're going to defer to some kind of engineering team to what is the best thing I should use. And Algorand has done a fantastic job of creating developer resources, a fantastic developer portal, tools for developers to use their node, their sandbox locally on their computer so you can get up and running really, really fast. I would highly recommend it if you are a developer to go check out their developer portal because it's very good. And if you're a developer, you know that good docs make all the difference and they have great docs. So that's a very, very huge plus.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you. That's a great segue kind of into our next chapter. We're going to be going a little bit more into fraud and compliance. This is a big thing that we talk about our clients with. And a big reason that what we built Algomart on top of was Algorand for the blockchain, but also for our payments rail Circle. So I want to pass it to you, Joelle, and just if you want to just talk about some of the work that Circle's done as far as being compliant and really how Circle can help those brands be able to receive payments and some of the advantages there.
Sure. I think one element that quickly comes to the forefront when brands and any company is entering this space is that what you're dealing with here is value, right? It's value exchange. And so I think typically people tend to think about things like fraud and compliance when it comes to monetary exchange, right? But actually it's a huge concern in other areas that most of us are not typically familiar with, in the art space and all of those things. There's a lot of fraud and a lot of compliance issues just because you're dealing with value exchange. And I think that this new technology and the application to NFTs in particular is no different. Businesses will face, unfortunately, bad actors trying to exploit and benefit from sometimes people not being extremely familiar with the way that these new things work. And Circle has always been for 8 years now of the belief there's probably a better technological answer that matches the new way that things are being done in this technology in blockchain, which is to put a lot of things on chain, to rely less on people and on processes and more on software, and similarly for fraud and compliance. So for a long time, we have, matched all the investment that we have done in technology from the point of view of supporting the actual financial and value exchange that is necessary for all these use cases, right? You effectively have always a party A and a party B. They want to exchange an asset or they want to exchange currency, but coupling that with how to figure out, whether those transactions are safe for the participants and whether they are compliant with the various regulations. So the way that we typically deal with that is we bring products to businesses that as we think about it, they layer on top of blockchain technology. We also establish bridges to the traditional financial system in a way that if brands and businesses need to accept payments in the form of traditional payments, such as payment methods such as a card or a bank account transfer or things like that. But the transaction, the value exchange that they want actually to take place is delivering an NFT for a user, right? So you need to combine the traditional financial system with the transaction value exchange that happens on blockchain. And because those things get very quickly complicated because you're effectively dealing with the transaction that's happening across multiple disparate financial services and systems. Dealing with fraud and dealing with compliance is very complicated for businesses. And we observed that there was an opportunity for us to help businesses with that. So what we do is we offer essentially fraud tools and fraud engines so that if businesses and brands are accepting these traditional payment methods, that they can rely, a little bit on software and hopefully have a better answer for that. And then we are super, super heavy on the regulatory compliance side. We deal with regulators all around the world. Circle is licensed in many jurisdictions. to make sure that all these value exchanges that are happening in all these use cases are done in a compliant way, and also so that brands don't enter pitfalls that they might not be aware of. As I said, similarly going back to art and the sale of art, and how that is very prone to things like money laundering, and you need to understand these high value asset exchanges, who is behind these transactions. And so Circle provides a lot of tools for businesses to deal with that.
That's great. Yeah, thank you. And then the one other thing that, just for the audience as well, I don't know if everyone's familiar with the stablecoin that Circle has, USDC, and I didn't know, helpful just to give the audience a little context on what USD and why that's so beneficial for the crypto world in general too.
Yeah, happy to. Yeah. In our trajectory as a company, I think we quickly realized, or maybe not so quickly, it took us a few years, but we realized eventually that what this space needed was the currencies that we are familiar with on a day-to-day basis, the dollar, the euro, the Japanese yen, whatever it is, but bring these currencies in the way that people trust them, and in the way that they are, stable and familiar to the day-to-day value exchange that people have. But bring those to blockchain, right? And have essentially the dollar running on blockchain technology. And USDC is Circle's answer to that. USDC wasn't the first to market. There were other stablecoins, as they're called, before. But when we built USDC, we thought about it in a particular way. We, again, with eyes on regulatory compliance, we thought this needed to be built for the dollar out of the US, with US banking partners, with companies regulated in a particular way, but in a way that it was still liquid and super easy to use and super accessible globally. And so we did that with USDC. USDC is the second largest dollar-backed stablecoin today, with over $40 billion dollars in circulating supply, and you can essentially play this role of the dollar that is used for payments of, for example, NFT, but any other transaction happening on blockchain.
Yeah, that's great. And I heard someone describe it as probably the simplest way to think about Circle is almost the Stripe of the crypto world, which is simplifying it way too much, but it's an easy way for, I think, some folks on this call to think about it like, great, I can take my credit card and now I can sell something and get onto those crypto rails through USDC on Circle, and then everything opens up to me. Would you agree with that analogy, or do you think that's a little too basic?
I think it's a good analogy. I think it helps people quickly understand what we're trying to do, but I would risk to say that we're actually trying to do something that's even a little bit more ambitious than that. I think. Yep. We fundamentally believe that blockchain rails are just going to be the next infrastructure for finance around the world. And this is going to be a transition, and it will take time, but eventually we'll get there. I think we're seeing that with some use cases like NFT and commerce of NFTs, where essentially, as I said, a lot of the value exchange, a lot of the payments and settlement use cases are happening then on blockchain. When you see brands and businesses doing that, the way that we imagine the future a little bit after that is that companies will actually be banking with services that operate fully on top of this digital infrastructure, right? Because it's so much better. It works on weekends, right? It works at 8 p.m. at night. It doesn't close in your face when you most need it. It's fast, it's cheap, as David said. And so we believe that, the entirety of the financial services industry is going to be rewritten on top of this technology. And Circle ambition to be, a digital currency bank for all these businesses to fulfill the needs that they have from a financial service point of view. Right now, as you said, we started with the payments angle because that's a very, very material pain point for a lot of companies, and we do a lot in payments. But just this year now, in late fall, we have launched a product in the treasury space. So, companies now, if they're holding assets in the form of digital dollars, they can now invest with some Circle products and make some yield. Certainly a lot better yield than they would make in a traditional business savings account. And that's our ambition, to continue to provide all of this portfolio of financial products to businesses.
Yeah, yes. It's a great product. Given the current interest rates, it's amazing what better yield you can get that. So you'll encourage companies to check it out. Super interesting. I won't go too far down this rabbit hole, so I'll stay out of it. But to your point, absolutely seeing all financial systems moving over to this blockchain world because it is more efficient. And you're even seeing some, world governments doing it as well. So adopting Algorand as their blockchain to do that, which it's fascinating to see. Very interested to watch that play out. I would love to turn over to you, Abdel. I know I can only imagine trying to navigate going through finance and compliance at Coca-Cola and what that journey looked like. Would love to hear how you navigated it and, your ultimate solution of launching this summer on OpenSea, how you came to that conclusion and how much compliance played a part of that.
Yes. So you're alluding to the NFT that we launched on OpenSea in June, I think it was. Sorry, so that took a lot of work. I think it took probably somewhere between 2 years from laying the groundwork, educating, finding the right partners, finding also what can we launch so it doesn't fall between the cracks. Even if we're a major brand, things tend to fall between the cracks if you launch something on OpenSea. How to make it relevant? So these were all questions that I think we needed to answer in those 2 years. So again, I think I'm not going to go through it again, but as I mentioned, legacy was very important. So explaining what we wanted to do, how we would contractualize what we wanted to do. Another thing was, can we accept any cryptocurrency to be paid with? We couldn't. So the angle that we had there, I think just for everyone's knowledge, is that we basically donated the money that we made. I think it was around $500,000 to charity, one of our partners. So we sponsor the Olympics and the Special Olympics. So we donated $500,000 to our partner at the Special Olympics. I think I told you, Jesse, before that I think, charity angle sometimes is something that's missing in the crypto world. So we were very happy to do this and it solved an issue, not accepting cryptocurrency. Beside the point, I think the charity angle was a very interesting one. And then also, I think probably talking about the product. So what we did is we had a fan-shaped box that contained about 4 elements, and each element alluded to a specific part of Coke. So the sound, the fizz, the color, the image, and all of that was packaged in a very nice format in an ancient or an old fridge, so an old Coca-Cola fridge. So that did very well. That did very well. And we were very happy about it. And I think what we always talk about it internally is we call it a test and learn. So for us, this was really a means of testing the model, testing what we had as procedures, if those were correct, launching it, and then learning from it. So let's see, those kind of 3-4 different procedures really aligned, and we had many learnings from it. I think you alluded to somewhere also in terms of what kind of partner would you launch this with. So we launched this with a partner, to be honest, that didn't have a big track record in NFTs, but that took us on their journey. So it's a partner called Taffy. That's an old standing partner from ours that does collectibles. So that partner then also took that journey with us and launched it with us. They did a great job. The OpenSea collaboration was also interesting in terms of how do we launch this? How do we communicate about this? You can understand also we as a global organization, again, because this is a test and learn, we don't necessarily want it to become viral. So that was something we needed to keep in check, which was difficult. But again, so once we launched it, we learned from it. And I think these learnings in the 6 months that this happened, we're going to do much better. And we're going to commercialize the following collections in a more strategic, commercial, and marketing kind of ways. So meaning that we will go straight into does our consumer want from our NFTs? And we will adapt these NFTs collections to our consumers. So you'll see a couple of communications coming out. Sorry, I can't mention them yet, but you'll see a couple of communications coming out, especially because, for example, Coca-Cola is very big for Christmas. So there is a need for our consumers to hear about us during Christmas, and this is a new way for us to communicate. Launching an NFT during Christmas with our key Christmas assets, and again, this is something that we've learned from our previous launch. So and then up on this again. So we're looking to do, of course, enter into a metaverse, enter into gaming, and all of this for us are, let's go, maybe to a lot of the people that are listening or people that are very heavily invested in the crypto world, this might seem like baby steps, but for us, these are quite giant steps. But with each step, we learn and we build upon them. So it's not that we don't want to make mistakes. We rather make mistakes now than later, but it's just that we learn from each launch. So the most important thing, I think, just to maybe finish my thoughts, is that the most important thing is education. So I think from the get-go, education is very important. And educating the whole kind of the stakeholders inside the business, but also the people that are on the outside of those stakeholders, because in the end, you need that kind of, because it really is a vortex that you get them along to be able to buy in, to be able to launch other things, to be able to, and I know there's other questions coming, but for example, what do you do actually with an NFT? Are there any actual users? So we sponsor, for example, festivals. Is there any real use to maybe launch an NFT to have a practical use at a festival, a music festival, etc., etc. So I think that's kind of the journey. That's how we built up on each step. And this is how we were able to launch a successful NFT from the get-go. But again, building up on it to be more consumer-centric, I think, towards the next couple of steps. And I think that's important. I think it's for us. This is a medium that we will be able to communicate with our consumers. But not only we also want to be able to make use of this new technology. I think.
And I love you're saying the education. Spot on. So Brandon and I and David, as we've gone down this journey together, that's one of the things that we learned pretty quickly is that there needs to be a lot of education because most people is brand new to them and it's a little scary. So we've actually started doing a one-day workshop with our clients. We'll go in and we'll do a deep dive and like, here's blockchain, here's the world of NFTs. And then we use the second half of the day to really start figuring out, hey, what does your strategy look like? And quite honestly, for some brands, it doesn't make sense. They're not going to have a strategy yet, and that's totally fine. But they're making educated decision. They now have a deck that they can go to their other stakeholders with. It explains, yes, I've explored NFTs and this is my conclusion I came to. So I love hearing the education, could not agree more. And we touched about this early on, but again, not just being a cash grab, which I think, Anne-Marie, you really hit upon that. And it ties in nicely kind of what our next session was like. I don't know about for you, but a Thanksgiving meal, I had a lot of questions of like, hey, aren't these just like images I'm downloading? Like, why are they so valuable? Which is a totally fair question. But Anne-Marie, I'd love to hear your perspective. Like, why are these not just like GIFs or images that I can download? What does it really, where is this value coming from?
Yeah, I mean, I think in a nutshell, it is this entire ecosystem of blockchain and NFT is going to bring people closer to the brands that they love and open up a whole host of new experiences. And, I want to echo what Abdel was saying about taking that learning mindset. And when I think about the opportunity that lays before all of us, no matter regardless of our business, one of the things that we studied was just overall the opportunity in this space. And so what I think is incredible to understand is, this summer there were surveys out that said that about 20% of Americans were even aware of NFTs, and far less than that percentage had transacted or put hands on anything crypto related. And yet, despite that, when you look at the global revenue numbers, in the first quarter, it was 1.2 billion of global revenue sales against NFTs, rocketing to 10.7 billion in the third quarter of this year. You step back and you understand that with that small level of awareness and those large numbers, there's just a huge, huge opportunity that's still relatively untapped. But Jesse, just circling back to your question, I think, some of the most interesting things that I've seen that have emerged in NFT space this year are where we're kind of transcending beyond art, which is so fascinating, and music and rights and even, digital collectibles, into bringing that into the physical world, and now starting to create experiences where, we're going from tokens that are being gamified in, AR ways to, one of my favorite all-time applications this year was actually what Algorand did with the Italian olive oil producer supply chain, where they're helping to bring transparency to all of these local producers and ultimately help link consumers to make smarter choices about the olive oils that they're buying. I think when we think about like what resonates with us about this, it goes back to like that personal touch, and how does it tie back to your world? Like, I love to cook. I'm Italian. So when I read about that, David, I was just like totally swooning over that particular application.
If you're interested, they are taking it one step further and also offering basically certificates of authenticity, but then also the ability to have in-person cooking classes and more bespoke experiences for those that acquire authenticated olive oil. So there's a whole roadmap of unique experiences. So if you're excited, I'm happy to put you in touch with them.
I'm taking you up on that, David.
I'm hungry now. It's still morning for me, but sounds good. That is really, I agree. Like I love seeing the intersection there between the physical and the digital world. And I just think some of the utilities we have there are going to be super, super neat that we'll see as we go into 2022. Before we go in that last section, which Anne-Marie intend to, because it's a perfect segue, which is really what do we see for 2020? I'd love to hear from you, Brandon, because I know this is something that we talk about a bunch with our clients. Kind of two things. So one, is this really a new thing? Like this idea of NFTs or collectibles? And then two, like, is that value in the fact that it's unique, or like really where does that value come from?
Yeah, that's a tough one. So it's definitely not new. If you think about collectibles, you can think all the way back to baseball trading cards, to Pokemon, Magic the Gathering, which comes up for me all the time because I do play Magic the Gathering. And it was actually the first thing where I realized, like, I wish I could buy these as real NFTs that I could exchange for a real world item. But that goes back to your point earlier about having some kind of further utility other than just collecting it. Maybe it gives me the right to stand in line earlier or later. Maybe it gives me the right to buy more at a cheaper rate later. Maybe it gives me some real world utility where I could exchange it. And I think that's what I think we saw a lot of people rush to the table after they saw those numbers that Anne-Marie mentioned. And we're like, we got to get into this space, and then took a step back and said, like, how do we get into this space and still be authentic and not have it be a cash grab, as you mentioned? So that's my hot take on that.
Yeah. The numbers are huge. Go ahead, David.
I was just going to expand on it. I mean, there is without a doubt a number of NFTs out there that will quickly approach absolutely zero value without question, right? People throw things out there that don't really have, to Anne-Marie's earlier point, a vision for how this is going to add long-term and differentiated, meaningful experience. Now, in some cases, like items that are of the zeitgeist of the time, like CryptoPunks and some of these other things, I think those will have staying power because it shows that early adoption, that kind of community identity that people have really attached to. But I think that's a fleeting window of opportunity, right? Brands might be able to recreate that, but I think the real long-term value add here is having a more intimate connection with your customers. People who participate in drone racing leagues, original NFT drop as an example, who are able to attend in-person events, who are able to live stream with special perks, who are able to just extend that experience that they're already passionate about in a meaningful way. I think that's where we start to really see the large value capture. And then to round it out and bring it full circle, no pun intended, actually, partnering with companies like WOW to allow your consumers to access these items, access these experiences, these collectibles as easy as just using your credit card is really where it's all headed. And that's the convergence that I think I'm most excited about as well.
Makes all the sense in the world. Cannot agree with you more. Absolutely doesn't need those early bragging rights, which are going to be super valuable. But I agree that is a fleeting moment, and it's going to be super interesting to what is that long-term value with brands and their clients for sure. I know we're coming up against time a little bit. I wanted to go down the line and just each ask of you, what do you expect or hope to see in terms of crypto and how it relates to in 2022 and beyond? So I'll start with you, Brandon, because you're top of my list there. So I'll start with you and we'll start down the line.
Yeah, so kind of like I mentioned before, NFTs were a good tip of the iceberg for people to sort of wrap their minds around some of this blockchain stuff. Now what we're starting to see is more people saying, tokenizing something. How do I do that? How do I make money off of that? And there's definitely more education there as well. Lots of education to be had. There's also a big investment on basically just being transparent. Anne-Marie, hit the nail on the head there. It was, if you're going to move toward this concept of having tokenization or having NFTs, what is the roadmap? What is your plan? How are you going to distribute these things? And how are you going to make more? And how are there going to be future utility? And I like that the whole nature of blockchain is about transparency. And now it's pushing companies to actually show that transparency or get left in the dust. And I think that's going to be a big shift in 2022.
How about you, David? What are you hoping to see in 2022 in terms of crypto and ideally how it relates to brands?
Yeah, I think so. When we talk about this utility, the obvious starting point is in virtual experiences. And the first virtual experience that comes to mind is certainly gaming and Meta with their big proclamation about, bringing true virtual world and augmentation to a home near you. I think that is the frontier that we'll see the earliest adoption. But we're already seeing this unique combination of virtual and physical with the announcements from Nike, with things like Coca-Cola. And so I think that trend, we're at the tip of the iceberg, as they say, that's only just getting started. We have done a number of use cases and concepts with brands around ticketing, around exclusive experiences, around early access to different venues that they already have. So more traditional brick and mortar and kind of creating a unique spin. Museums offering kind of customized viewings of different showpieces. And if you attend, you get a digital NFT and collectible, which not only symbolizes a bragging right, but guess what? who's going to be the first people the museum reaches out to when they have a similar experience in the future, right? And so it really starts to become an interesting landscape. And I think 2022 is going to be the year of more traditional brick and mortar, showing how they can easily blend the two, and then these virtual in-game experiences, and then finally AR and VR, showing that these NFTs are getting rendered in a meaningful way where your character looks better, or you can buy a plot of land, or you can do something in the game. Those are kind of the two obvious utilities that I think are going to play out here in the next.
Yeah, absolutely. You see some of that with Axie Infinity already, which I was blown away how much it's blown up. But for anyone in the audience who not had looked into these, like Play to Earn, I encourage you to Google it. It's a whole other wild world where brands or just companies are interacting with their clients. Keep going down this list. Joel, I'd love to hear from you, like what you really are hoping to see in 2022 in terms of crypto and what that can mean for companies.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing that we have always been passionate about is how the user gets put in the center of these experiences in this new technology, right? So I think we talked a lot about blockchain, and then people talk about Web3, and now NFTs is one of the applications for it. But one thing that sometimes gets lost is that how one of the main transformational powers of this technology is to really put the user, right, the consumer at like a more controlling position in sort of these relationships, because a lot of what happened with the latest phase of the latest evolution of the internet is that, there was a lot of super interesting innovations built for consumers, but there was a lot of power kind of consolidated in a lot of these very large brands. And I think a challenge, so in terms of expectations of what we see for 2022 and beyond is a lot more of this thinking that, okay, for the next set of applications that we're going to think, how do we put the user even more in control of the experience, because the technology allows for that to happen, whether it is in the form of them, holding their financial assets, their currency, by themselves, because they don't need to rely on anybody else, on a bank or something like that, whether it is because they're holding, the relationship that they have with them by themselves. But I think that, or whether because they hold a stake in a network, such as Algorand, right? And they kind of invest in that network, just as you can't invest on the internet that easily. But the interesting point to me, and I think it will be, funny enough, it will be super challenging for brands, but I think we need how to learn to live with this next phase is how when the consumer is in control of the experience, how do you then continue to build this relationship with them, right? Because I think the world that we need to imagine is a world where Starbucks rewards become digitized, maybe in the form of NFTs, right? And then a new coffee chain can open up a program and say, bring your Starbucks rewards, and we are going to value that, right? Because now, as I said, the consumer is in control of those assets. It's with them. It's on their wallet, and it's up to other innovators and creative people to then bring and try to get and steal, quote unquote, those customer relationships by offering more interesting things for consumers. I think that's going to be challenging for everybody, but I think it's also going to promote, as I said, the consumer in the center of all these experiences. And I think it's only going to be better for us as consumers. And we're very excited about that in this next phase.
That's a neat example. I had not heard that one with the Starbucks example, but that's a good way to highlight, putting users in control. I really like that. Going down, Abdel, I know you probably can't talk too much about your plans for 2022, but love to hear what your hopes and expectations are. And if simply can't say I understand.
Thanks, Jesse. Yeah, let's keep it secret. But something's coming in a week. So, but yeah. Joe, I love that you mentioned Starbucks, because I think loyalty payments, and loyalty activations. Either at a chain like Starbucks, but also at retail. If you buy X of Y product, you can get something for free or at lower priced items. Now it's all done physically. I think that would be an obvious thing to go towards an NFT. But in general, I think for me, it's all about fan engagement. I think fan consumer engagement, I think this will change how consumers engage with a brand. And I think, for example, a fan that owns, or a consumer that owns a token, you can maybe at Coke vote on certain flavors, maybe vote on what would be your collaboration that you would like to see us doing. So it'll be much more interactive through a tokenization, I think, or an NFT. So I can see these real use cases. Again, as I mentioned, with royalties, with retail, And I think something that I would like to see, but maybe it's still early, is contracts. So I think it will lead towards decentralized contracts. Something that I see happening is also the line between virtual and physical will get much thinner, like we saw with Artifact and Nike. So we're also thinking about it. How can a consumer both consume a physical beverage, but also own something on the blockchain? And again, I think we think something like, can we have something where we have ads in metaverse, and those ads can then interact with your avatars, and there'll be a certain system around that. Tokenization, I think tokenization will be a major one. I think tokenization of brands will be a major one next year. But in order for that to happen, I will mention the forbidden word, which is regularization. So I think we need some more regularization to happen. And I know not everyone is probably a fan of this, but I think we need some kind of guardrails for brands really to get on board in terms of tokenizing their brands. I think that's definitely something that needs to happen.
Yeah, we're talking about just startups as well, getting into the tokenization space. Just a lot of fascinating things you can do along those lines for sure. And Marie, love to hear it. I know we're working with you closely, so I think we got a good idea of what's to come for you. But I'd love to hear from your perspective what you're hoping to see or expect to see in terms of crypto and Drone Racing League in general, 2022.
Well, I definitely agree and echo the sentiments of all the panelists that we're going to be looking at gaming and putting fans in the center of the experience. Maybe I'll take a little bit of a different spin on it, which is what I've witnessed to date is that fans and communities that are interacting with crypto and blockchain are doing so in a very intentional manner at the moment. I think that we're still seeing, early adopters in this space. And for us as an ecosystem to really transcend into mass and mainstream, we probably have to evolve our gaming, our applications, our fan experiences into more of a state of being where people are using blockchain. They don't even really know that they're necessarily using blockchain. I think we have to make it that simple, and the onus is on us to always kind of elevate that fan experience and ease of use. And so that's really, one of my hopes for the next year.
Yeah, that's spot on. It's the only way you're going to be able to do that is to make it ease of use and not scare the mainstream off, right? We're really still talking about a small percentage of the population that's comfortable there. So I could not agree more. I think you guys are doing a great job of that. We got a little bit of time left. I wanted to open up to the audience for questions. I see that we have some questions in chat already. So I'm just going to read these out. And if you want to answer, please just raise your hand and I'll call on you. How are small/middle market companies, not a huge brand, how are they using NFTs? So I just want to highlight there are, as far as with Rockin' with Adept, we are today already working with, brands that are not necessarily these huge brands, but they're really trying to create their own brand through this. So I don't think I hope the audience does not feel like, oh, this is only something that a large brand would be able to do. That's certainly not the case. And if you go and look at any of the open exchanges today, you'll see people basically creating their own brands, right? I think, David, you mentioned some of them already, like whether it's Cyberpunks or CryptoKitties. There's people actually creating these almost brands via NFTs as well. So it is absolutely not just limited to large brands for sure.
Yeah, I just to reiterate, when you start with the basics, those basics are universal. How do I engage with my customers? How do I retain them for longer? How do I ensure that they engage in a meaningful way? And then blockchain, NFTs, these items are really just a toolkit that's at every brand's disposal, large or small, to engage your users in a meaningful way. As Brandon was talking about, different trading games, there's a whole host of new blockchain-based games where you can actually own the cards, and your deck that you play with is based on what cards or in-game items you've purchased or collected through engaging with the game over time. And that is distinctly different than basically every other, unless it's an in-person physical game, right? You log into the server itself, you might have a card that's assigned to your account, but you don't actually own those cards. And now, if I have a choice as a consumer, I'm certainly going to go play the version that allows me to own those and then potentially trade or swap for other cards with other players, lend those to other players. There's just a whole new window of opportunity where if you don't take advantage of that toolkit, you're a little bit, kind of outside looking in.
Yep, absolutely. There's another question here asking, are the large brands going to blockchains and companies like Dept to figure out what their NFT strategy is? Or is it the blockchain companies, say like Algorand or Circle, that are going to them to help them craft their strategy? I know my perspective, which is essentially like, I feel like there's a lot of brands coming to us to help them try to solve that. But I'll be curious from your perspective, David or Joao, if you're actually actively reaching out to any of these brands to pitch them of like, hey, let us figure out your NFT strategy.
The answer for me is simple. I work in business development. So the 100%, if you're a brand and you're listening in and you want help refining your strategy or thinking through how you might be able to do this, 1-800 Markley. I'm kidding. I'll leave my email address, but answer is 100% yes. And Joao, I don't know if Circle is pursuing it in a similar fashion or not.
We serve an NFT business, particularly NFT marketplaces, but also large brands that are, trying to process payments to facilitate the exchange of NFTs. And I can tell you, Jesse or James, who asked the question, we don't do a whole lot of outbound. We haven't had the time to do a lot of outbound. We are completely overwhelmed by organic interest. So these brands are definitely coming to companies in this space, not the other way around.
Yeah, that's been our experience. We do no outbound sales for us. It's all inbound. I love this next question. It's a little bit more of a comment, and I think I'll address this probably to Brandon and David, but just talking about that combination between an NFT and a DAO and kind of all the magic that can happen there. I was curious, I think you alluded to some of this with some of the tokenization that we'll see in 2022, but I was curious, I guess I'll direct this to you, Brandon. How powerful do you see that? And do you see any clients today that are interested in exploring that? So, I think you got the question.
Yeah, there's definitely clients wanting to explore that space of becoming a DAO or creating a DAO, and it's definitely more complicated than I think they might be aware of. But it does touch upon this idea of using smart contracts, which is it's like the big reason why blockchain technology is awesome. Like with smart contracts, you can do a lot. When you think about a DAO, it's typically replacing that middleman, putting the user in control. And like, think about Uber. Normally you open up Uber on your phone, you would call up an app. Well, what if you could just call up that driver directly and there is no Uber and you're just paying that driver directly? I'm not even going to get into the whole background checks and all that stuff. That's a different kind of problem to solve. But we can start to see how these decentralized companies will replace centralized companies today so that we don't have to go through a middleman. That is a huge part of the reason why you need a ton of transparency around that. But yeah, there is a lot of interest and still a lot of education to do. And as we mentioned before with the NFT strategy stuff, we also have a whole strategy we're planning for if you want to tokenize something and go toward becoming a DAO, to put you on a path to do that and teach you and guide you through the whole process.
Excellent. I think we have one more question here from Rich. So here's just pondering the idea of if you have a Coca-Cola NFT with a variety of flavor combinations that work with their smartphone sort of vending machines, just some of the mechanics of what that might look. Given that it has Coca-Cola name, I'm going to direct that one to you, Abdel.
Yes, I think that's one for me. Definitely. I think I was just talking about how we take it step by step, and the easiest steps, we're doing them first. So anything to do with NFTs, gamification, metaverses, and then taking a step further in terms of real use cases of NFTs, and then taking another step further. There will be a certain kind of a line that would be broken, I think, between an NFT and real world use. So in this real world use, you go to any chain where our fountains are, you bought a certain NFT, and you can maybe access a secret taste that's not available to just anyone else. So definitely the possibilities, I think, are endless, and yeah, I think this is something that we'll definitely see in the near future. In the near future, yes.
Excellent. Well, I think we're running out of time at this point. I want to thank everyone that listened in. We will be recording this and putting this back up on the web, so feel free to share it out with anyone else. We'll also have people's contact here if you want to reach out to any of our panelists. Thank you, all of our panelists. I know end of year, this time of year, it's super busy, so I really appreciate carving out the time to do this. I also wanted to highlight that we will have another Depth Live Talks in January next year on trends, what we've seen in just technology in general. And then we're going to do a follow-up crypto, a little bit going deeper into the technology, more around the tokenizations, probably getting closer to the last question we get to answer around the metaverse. I think we'll have to wait until February, but we'll go deeper on that in that Live Talks as well. So thank you for everyone for joining. Looking forward to seeing you all in 2022. And thank you again, all panelists.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks all.